one of the things that I think is a problem for Sam is that Sam, in his own mind, imagines that he's perfectly consistent.
Right.
Sam is a bundle of contradictions, right? A guy who believes that there is exactly zero free will, but that it is very important that we be vigilant about moral issues, is in conflict with himself. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. If you say, I believe these two things, I know them to be mutually exclusive, I believe they both have some truth, and I don't know how they reconcile. I'm interested, I don't know, but I'm not giving up either one of these things because I don't think either one of them is so wrong that it needs to be thrown out, right? That's something you can hear, right? Or Jordan Peterson, right? Jordan Peterson does this well, right? Do you believe, in, a God who answers prayers? I act as if I do. Right? The point is, that's how you do this. You don't claim that my belief system is consistent across the board.
Right.
You say, here's a zone where I'm relatively confident. Here's a zone where I'm relatively confident. The thing in between is a place I can't be confident because I can see as well as anyone else. It doesn't fit. Right? And so that ability to get from a low peak to a higher peak is, I believe, tantamount to how much of your own uncertainty you can tolerate.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Like, you need to be able to live in the uncertainty. And, frankly, part of why, for instance, people who have actually traveled, including, immigrants who have actually lived in two very different countries, but people who have traveled and not just gone to the Disney version of, your home in whatever place it is, but actually traveled, what you're doing is going into uncertainty and saying, I'm going to have to be okay with this. And frankly, people who travel a lot are indicating something about their personality, which says, I'm more than okay with this. I kind of love the uncertainty. I love the serendipity. I love the opportunity to learn things that I did not see coming.
Yep. And I will, if I can pat myself on the back, I think one of my better skills, one of the reasons that I do well in this game, is that I have a preternatural capacity to file questions as open and leave them there literally for decades sometimes.
Yeah.
And the experience is you even forget that you've got a question active. It's simmering so low on a back burner that you don't even really think of it. But it isn't closed. You haven't leapt to a conclusion just to close it out. And then years later, sometimes decades later, the thing that you didn't know emerges, and just the cascade of that completes, and then it has all of these effects and the other things that you weren't able to put together. It's a marvelous experience.
Yeah.
And I think it really is a question of we have a bad habit. Our bad habit is leaping to conclusions, and that happens at every scale. And basically, to the extent that you have that tendency, it's an Achilles heel. And I would also say that the flip side of this, the way, we alluded to this earlier, but the way not to fall into this trap is very socially dangerous, but it's straightforward, which is to file things as possibilities, right? So if we talk about, for example, conspiracy theories, you should be able to take every conspiracy theory and you should be able to say, well, what I may believe, let's take a good one, right? The moon landing was fake. I don't believe the moon landing was fake. I believe we landed on the moon. I believe it was a profoundly important historical event. But I don't rate the chances that it was fake at 0, right? In fact, I've delved into that conspiracy theory, and I've noticed there are actually some pieces of evidence in it I don't know how to answer, right? Things that are important. So I have a very low probability that actually what I was handed in terms of the moon landing is obscuring another truth, right?
But just as when you would ask our boys when they were younger, they mostly don't need to be asked this anymore.
Right.
Right? At 18 and 16. How certain are you of that? An answer of 100% or of 0% is basically a non-starter.
Yep.
Right? So there are things that, do I have knees? Yeah, I'm 100% sure of that. But there is very little that goes into any kind of complexity space that you should rank as a 0% or 100%.
Well, I gotta say,
the knees, you're going to go after the knees,
yep,
aren't you?
I'm going after the knees.
I know, as soon as I said it.
Well, the reason to do it, of course, as soon as you said it, you can spot, and I'm sure given a minute and a half, you will find your own, reason to reserve a very tiny percentage chance that you don't have knees. But, well, all right, you haven't heard this from me yet. I've been holding it back, and I'm not going to fully explore it here, but I will give you the tantalizing tidbit. I have been mocking people, including Elon Musk, for his claim that there's a good chance we're living in a simulation. Okay? For one thing, his logic here, which is common to other people, is garbage, right? The logic is, well, the number of simulations has to outnumber the number of real universes by a huge amount. Therefore, statistically speaking, this is probably one, right? Which is such a bad argument, right? It's really, really bad because, A, we don't know that there are any simulations of any level of depth that have ever existed. So there may be one universe and no simulations, which means that all the universes are real. So anyway, whatever. You can take that apart. However, I had the very uncomfortable experience a couple weeks ago of realizing that although I still think the chances that we are living in a simulation are really, really tiny, that the chances that we are living in a simulation took a giant leap forward in my own understanding, even though I really don't like the idea and will be so disappointed.
Just point of order, I feel like giant leap forward is like final solution, which is one of these phrases you really shouldn't use out of context.
Even Mao didn't say giant leap forward, did he? No. So anyway, it's something, the chances that we were living in a simulation to me was like 1 in 10,000.
Okay.
Maybe 1 in 100,000.
Yeah. What happened?
I realized that some relatively commonly accepted observations are consistent with this in a way, so that I still think it's less than 1% chance, but it took a giant leap in the right direction. I will come back to this. I told you I'm not going to provide the evidence yet. I want to run it by a couple of people and just make sure that I'm not, I haven't lost my mind.
Okay. Because at the moment you sound like you have.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.